Something is in the water beneath you, not metaphorically, not in the way of a story that uses the ocean as symbol or suggestion. Literally, physically, geologically, something is beneath you. The ocean is always beneath you, somewhere. You are never more than a few thousand kilometers from the edge of an ocean, and the ocean floor is always there, 7 kilometers down in the deepest places, covered in darkness and pressure and the slow rain of dead things falling from the surface. The ocean is always beneath you, and the ocean has always been the most dangerous place on Earth, more dangerous than any jungle, more dangerous than any volcanic field or earthquake zone or glacier or desert. The ocean, specifically the deep, warm, ancient oceans of certain specific periods in Earth's history, has produced predators of a scale and ferocity that no terrestrial environment has ever matched. Predators that make the largest modern shark look like something you might keep in an aquarium. Predators that hunted in water so dark and so deep that even the prey never saw what was coming until it was already inside the kill. Tonight, we are going to descend, not into the modern ocean. The modern ocean is tame by comparison, a domesticated thing, its largest predators, mere shadows of what came before. We are going to descend into the ancient oceans, the ones that existed before you, before humans, before mammals, before the first fish with jaws closed around the first piece of flesh. We are going to descend through 400 million years of the most dangerous water this planet has ever produced, and we are going to name the things that lived there, and we are going to understand what they did, and we are going to feel the weight of all that dark water above us. This is a story about oceans. It is a story about teeth. It is, ultimately, a story about how extraordinary and how frightening the living world can become when given enough time and enough warm water, and no human beings to interfere with the results. Let your breathing slow. Let the darkness settle. Imagine the water above you cool, dark, pressing. Somewhere in that darkness, something is moving. Something has always been moving in the ancient water through all the long centuries of the earth, and we are going to find it. Something is moving below you. Before we name the monsters, let us understand the ocean itself. Let us understand what it is that makes the ocean, across all of geological time, the most reliably dangerous environment that life has ever created. The ocean is not one thing. It is a layered world, divided by temperature and light and pressure into zones as distinct as different continents. At the surface, the sunlit zone, the top 200 meters, the light is sufficient for photosynthesis. Phytoplankton bloom here, single-celled organisms converting sunlight into energy, forming the base of a food web that reaches upward to the largest animals that have ever lived. This is where the energy enters the ocean system. This is where life is richest and most various. Below 200 meters, the light fades. This is the twilight zone, the mesopelagic, where some light penetrates but not enough for photosynthesis. The creatures here live in a half-world too dark for plants, too bright for the truly deep ocean specialists. They are the intermediate predators, the migrators, the ones that ascend to the surface at night to feed and descend to darkness during the day to hide. Their bodies are adapted to the gradient. Some have large, upward-facing eyes, optimized for detecting the faint silhouettes of prey above them. Some produce their own light, in the cold, in the dark, for communication or for luring. Below 1,000 meters is the midnight zone. Here, no sunlight reaches at all. The pressure is more than 100 times the pressure at the surface. The temperature is just above freezing. The only light is biological bioluminescence. The cold green glow of organisms signaling to each other in the perpetual night of the abyss. The food here is whatever sinks down from above the dead bodies of surface organisms, the drifting marine snow of organic particles, the occasional large carcass that becomes, briefly, an entire ecosystem on the seafloor. It is in this layered world, in its warm, productive, competitive, ancient version, that the most dangerous predators in Earth's history evolved. Not the largest, not always the most intelligent, but the most effective, the most perfectly adapted, the most purely lethal predators that evolution has ever produced, when given hundreds of millions of years of an arms race with nothing to interfere. The arms race is the key. In the ocean, predator and prey co-evolve. The prey gets faster, or harder shelled, or more venomous, or more cryptic, and the predator gets more sensitive, or stronger, or faster, or smarter. Each improvement in defense drives an improvement in offense. Each improvement in offense drives an improvement in defense. Over millions of years, this race produces creatures of extraordinary capability, organisms whose sensory systems, whose muscular power, whose skeletal architecture, whose behavioral sophistication have been refined by selection pressure into something close to perfection. The ancient oceans were the site of this arms race at its most extreme, when the evolutionary timescales were longest, when the ecosystems were most complex, when the predators at the top of the food web had had the most time to become what they were. The result was an ocean in several specific periods that was more dangerous, more comprehensively, more terrifyingly dangerous than anything the modern world can offer. Let us go there. The rules of the ancient ocean. Every ocean in Earth's history has operated by the same fundamental rules. The energy comes from the sun, captured by photosynthesis. It flows through the food web from phytoplankton to zooplankton to small fish to larger fish to the apex predators at the top. The apex predators, the animals at the very tip of the food web, the ones with no natural enemies, are shaped by the environment that produced them, by the prey available to them, by the competition they faced, by the physics of the water they swam in. These apex predators are not designed. Evolution has no foresight, no intention, but the result of millions of years of selection in a productive, warm, competitive ocean is something that looks, to the human eye, very much like design. The streamlined body, shaped by the need to move through water with minimum resistance. The sensory systems, the lateral line that detects pressure changes in the water, the electroreception that detects the bioelectric fields of living prey, the extraordinary olfaction that can detect blood at parts per billion that seem engineered for finding prey in darkness. The teeth, if there are teeth, the most refined cutting or crushing instruments that biology produces. The ancient oceans were warmer than the modern ocean. The Cretaceous Ocean, for example, had average surface temperatures several degrees higher than today's, with tropical seas that were warmer still. Warm water holds less dissolved oxygen than cold water, but it supports a higher rate of biological productivity. The metabolic rates of organisms are higher in warm water. Reproduction is faster. Food webs cycle more rapidly. A warm, productive ancient ocean is the ideal factory for large, fast, metabolically expensive predators. The ancient oceans were also, in several periods, significantly larger than the modern ocean, or rather, the shallow seas were more extensive. The continental shelves, the most productive parts of the ocean, where sunlight reaches the bottom and nutrients upwell from the deep, were flooded by high sea levels in the Cretaceous, creating vast, shallow, epicontinental seas. The Western Interior Seaway, which divided North America into two landmasses during the late Cretaceous, was one of the most productive marine environments in Earth's history. A warm, shallow, nutrient-rich sea, several hundred kilometers wide and thousands of kilometers long, teeming with fish and invertebrates and the large predators that fed on them. These are the conditions that produce the deadliest ocean in Earth's history. Warm, shallow in places, deep in others, rich in prey, competitive, ancient, old enough for the evolutionary arms race to have run through many cycles. And we are going to visit these oceans, one by one, from the oldest to the most recent, from the first great predators to the last monsters, until we understand what the ocean was before we inherited it. The Devonian Sea. When Dunkleosteus ruled, we begin 375 million years ago. The late Devonian period, the age of fishes. The world above the ocean barely exists as we would recognize it. There are plants on land and some early tetrapods venturing cautiously onto the muddy shores, but the land is largely empty. The dominant world is the ocean. The ocean is everything, is everywhere, is the center of all life on Earth. And in that ocean, something extraordinary has happened. Jaws have evolved. This seems like a small thing. If you have lived your entire life in a world where every vertebrate has jaws, but for 100 million years before the Devonian, the vertebrates of Earth's oceans were jawless armored fish, sucker-mouthed and filter-feeding, unable to bite, unable to tear, unable to pursue and kill the way that jawed animals can. The evolution of jaws from the gill arches of jawless fish, modified over millions of years into the first hinged, biting, grasping mouth, was one of the most consequential events in the history of life. It created predation of a kind that had not previously existed. It started the arms race in earnest, and 375 million years ago, that arms race had produced its first great champion, its first genuine monster. Dunkleosteus terrelli, say the name slowly, Dunkleosteus, named for David Dunkel, the paleontologist who first studied it in detail, and for the Greek word for bone, bonefish, because Dunkleosteus was, first and foremost, a thing made of bone, encased in it, armored with it, its face and neck sheathed in interlocking plates of dermal bone that made it look less like a fish and more like a tank that had learned to swim. Dunkleosteus was a placoderm, one of the armored fishes that dominated the Devonian seas. But it was a placoderm at the extreme end of the scale. The largest specimens are estimated at 8 to 9 meters in length, the size of a large great white shark. But unlike a shark, whose body is cartilage and muscle, streamlined and flexible, Dunkleosteus was fronted by a massive bony shield, the head and neck encased in interlocking plates of bone that together could weigh hundreds of kilograms. Behind the bony head, the body tapered to a soft, flexible, shark-like tail, a design that allowed powerful swimming despite the armored front end. The mouth of Dunkleosteus was the most remarkable thing about it. It had no teeth. Let that settle for a moment. The apex predator of the Devonian seas had no teeth. What it had instead was edges. The bony plates of its jaw met at sharp, self-sharpening ridges of bone, the upper and lower jaw bones grinding against each other as the mouth opened and closed, constantly honing themselves into blades. These bone blades could generate a bite force estimated at 6,000 newtons, comparable to the bite force of a modern alligator in an animal that was attacking at full swimming speed. But the bite force was not the most frightening thing the speed. Biomechanical analysis of the skull suggests that Dunkleosteus could open its jaw from closed to fully open in 0.02 seconds, 50 times faster than a blink. This rapid jaw opening created a powerful suction as the jaw flew open. It generated a negative pressure that drew water, and everything in the water, toward the mouth at high velocity. The prey did not need to be within reach of the teeth. If it was within range of the suction, it was already caught. Dunkleosteus lived in the shallow, warm seas of the late Devonian seas that covered large areas of what are now North America and Europe. Its fossils are found primarily in the Cleveland Shale, a rock formation from the ancient seabed of what was once a warm, moderately deep inland sea covering the modern American Midwest. In this sea, Dunkleosteus was not alone at the top of the food web. It was accompanied by other large placoderms, by early sharks, by the enormous, predatory, lobe-finned fish that were simultaneously developing the limbs that would eventually bring some of their descendants onto the land. Imagine that sea, warm, greenish, rich with life schools of armored fish, clusters of nautiloid cephalopods with their straight shells, carpets of brachiopods on the sea floor, and moving through it, in the middle depths, the shape of Dunkleosteus, massive, slow by the standards of later predators, but utterly confident in its armor and its bite, moving toward prey that cannot escape, moving with the patience of something that has no predators of its own, something that has reached the top and stays there because nothing has evolved to challenge it. The Devonian Ocean is not the deadliest in Earth's history, but it is the first great dangerous ocean, the first ocean where vertebrate predators had reached sizes and capabilities that made the experience of being prey something genuinely terrifying. Every ocean that came after built on this foundation, the mouth that could not be stopped. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being small in the Devonian Sea. You are a fish perhaps 30 centimeters long, scaled and sleek, feeding on smaller organisms near the surface. The water around you is warm and green-tinged, filtered through the shallow depth above. Other fish move around you, the schools shifting and turning as they always do, the collective awareness of the school providing a small protection against the small predators that take the slow and the sick. Below you, something moves. You do not hear it. Fish do not have ears in the modern sense, but they have the lateral line, a system of pressure sensors running along the body, detecting disturbances in the water. The lateral line tells you that something large is rising from below, not fast, not yet, just a pressure wave, a disturbance in the pattern of the water, something displacing its mass upward through the water column. You turn. The school turns with you. The instinct to flee is immediate, hardwired, older than thought. Too late. The Dunkleosteus moves with a speed that its size makes seem impossible, the powerful tail driving the armored body upward, the bony head plate splitting the water, and then the jaw, opening in 1/50th of a second, the suction pulling you toward it before you can even complete the turn, the bone blades closing, and then nothing. This is the Devonian Ocean. This is where it started. The Devonian ended in catastrophe, the late Devonian extinction, a series of environmental crises that killed perhaps 75% of all species on Earth. The placoderms, the armored fishes, the lineage of Dunkleosteus did not survive. When the Devonian ended, the age of the armored fish ended with it. The seas that emerged from the extinction were populated by the survivors, the sharks, the ray-finned fish, the lobe-finned fish. The jaws remained, the armor was gone, the arms race continued with new competitors. The Carboniferous dark water, the Carboniferous period, from 359 to 299 million years ago, is famous for its giant insects and its vast coal swamps. But the ocean of the Carboniferous was also remarkable, and remarkable in a specific, sinister way. After the devastation of the late Devonian extinction, the marine world was rebuilding. The great placoderm predators were gone. The lineages that survived were diversifying rapidly into the empty ecological niches, particularly the sharks. The sharks of the Carboniferous were not like modern sharks. They were experiments, evolutionary experiments in body form and feeding strategy that produced some of the strangest animals in the history of life. Helicoprion had a lower jaw that was a spiral of teeth, a whorl of blades coiled into itself like a circular saw, with new teeth forming at the center and old teeth pushed inward and downward as the jaw grew. Dozens of teeth in a continuous spiral, every one of them sharp, all of them constantly in use. No other animal in Earth's history has produced anything like it. Its feeding strategy is still debated. Perhaps it sliced through soft-bodied prey. Perhaps it crushed shells. Perhaps the tooth whorl was used for something we have not yet imagined. What is certain is that it was one of the most bizarre and effective feeding structures in evolutionary history. Edistus, another Carboniferous shark relative, had a different nightmare configuration. Teeth that grew in a continuous series, not replaced but pushed forward, so that the old teeth protruded from the front of the jaw like a pair of enormous curved scissors. Scientists have compared it to a pair of hedge trimmers that would continue cutting after each bite. The prey would not simply be bitten, it would be sliced by a jaw that moved like a pair of blades. The Carboniferous ocean was an ocean of strange teeth and stranger mouths. The sharks were diversifying into dozens of forms, exploring the space of what a cartilaginous, gill-breathing, ocean-going predator could be. Some were small, some were large, some had flat, crushing teeth for hard-shelled prey, some had sharp, blade-like teeth for fish, some had the extraordinary, ornamented crests and finback spines that seemed designed for display or for defense against larger things, because in the Carboniferous ocean, even the sharks were not always safe. The oxygen levels in the Carboniferous atmosphere were extraordinarily high, perhaps 35%, compared to 21% today. This may have contributed to the size of the giant insects on land. In the ocean, the effects were different. Higher atmospheric oxygen meant higher dissolved oxygen in the water, which supported higher metabolic rates and potentially larger body sizes in marine organisms. The ocean of the Carboniferous was rich with oxygen, warm in its tropical regions, and very, very full of things with teeth. This was an ocean in transition, not yet at its peak of danger that would come later, but building toward it, adding teeth and speed and complexity with each passing million years. The Permian Ocean, before the end. The Permian period, the last period of the Paleozoic, from 299 to 250, 2 million years ago, produced an ocean that was rich, diverse, and ancient. The reefs of the Permian were complex communities built by fusulinid foraminifera and rugose corals, home to an extraordinary variety of invertebrates. The sharks had continued to diversify. The early ray-finned fish were becoming more numerous. The ammonoids, the spiral-shelled cephalopods, filled the water column in their hundreds of thousands, hunting with their tentacles and their beaks, themselves hunted by the large fish and the early marine reptiles that were beginning to explore the ocean. The Permian Ocean was not the deadliest, but it was the richest And richness, complexity, diversity, the deep accumulation of ecological relationships over hundreds of millions of years is what makes great dangerous oceans possible. You need a deep food web to support the apex predator at its top. You need millions of years of productivity to build the body of prey that feeds the hunters. The Permian Ocean had all of this. And then, 252 million years ago, it ended. The Permian Triassic extinction, the Great Dying, the worst mass extinction in Earth's history, killed 96% of all marine species. The ocean was not merely disrupted, it was nearly emptied. The reefs collapsed. The ammonoids were reduced to a handful of species. The trilobites, after 270 million years, were gone. The ocean that emerged from the extinction was sparse, impoverished, almost silent. A vast body of water with almost nothing living in it. Its chemistry wrong, its temperature wrong, its oxygen levels wrong. But almost nothing is not nothing. Life survived. And in the empty ocean of the early Triassic, life began again. The Triassic, the sea reborn in terror. The early Triassic Ocean, the first few million years after the Permian extinction, was one of the most desolate environments in Earth's history. The water was warm, sometimes lethally warm. The chemistry was off, too acidic in places, too anoxic in others. The food web that had existed for hundreds of millions of years was gone, and the survivors were few and fragile. But 252 million years of evolutionary history does not disappear. The survivors carried within them the genetic machinery for eyes and muscles and sensory systems, and the drive to feed. And feed they did, with desperate efficiency, in the empty ocean. And as the ocean slowly recovered, as the water chemistry improved, and the temperature stabilized, and the first new communities of organisms began to build themselves in the shallows, something new was entering the water. The reptiles had come to sea. The first marine reptiles of the Triassic were ichthyosaurs, and even from their earliest forms, they were extraordinary. The name means fish lizard, and the ichthyosaurs were exactly that. Reptiles that had returned to the sea and, under intense selection pressure, evolved bodies that looked and functioned like fish. Streamlined, finned, adapted for high-speed pursuit in open water. The early ichthyosaurs were not large. They were experimental, finding their niche in the recovering ocean. But they evolved rapidly, and by the Middle Triassic, they had produced forms of remarkable size and capability. Cymbospondylus was 10 meters long, an eel-like, powerful predator swimming through the Triassic Sea. Thalattoarchon, the ruler of the seas, was a large ichthyosaur with macropredatory teeth, capable of taking prey the size of itself. These were not the fish-eating specialists that later ichthyosaurs would become. These were the first great reptilian predators of the open ocean. The nothosaurs swam alongside them, long-bodied, four-flippered reptiles that may have hunted in the way of modern sea lions, pursuing fish through the shallows with swift, agile bodies. The placodont's armored reptiles with crushing, shell-cracking teeth worked the seafloor, systematically dismantling the mollusks and brachiopods that were slowly rebuilding the benthic communities. And then, in the late Triassic, something enormous appeared. Shonosaurus, Populares, an ichthyosaur, reaching perhaps 15 meters in length. Shonosaurus sicaniensis, potentially 21 meters long, one of the largest animals of any kind to have lived in the Triassic, a true leviathan of the recovering ocean. These giants were probably filter feeders or fish hunters. their enormous size supported by the rich marine productivity of the warming, late Triassic seas. The Triassic Ocean was not yet at its most dangerous, but it was rebooting faster than anything should be able to reboot from near total extinction. And the reptiles, once they found the ocean, were not going to leave it. They were going to become something extraordinary. The Jurassic Deep, a world of giants. The Jurassic period, from 201 to 145 million years ago, is the age everyone knows for its dinosaurs on land. But the Jurassic Ocean was, in many ways, more dramatic than anything happening on the shore. The ichthyosaurs had reached their peak of diversity and specialization. They were now fully marine animals, incapable of returning to land. They gave birth in the water, like dolphins, and some species show evidence of warm-bloodedness, of the high metabolic rate that sustained fast pursuit predation. Ophthalmosaurus was perhaps the most remarkable of them, an ichthyosaur with eyes the diameter of dinner plates, the largest eyes relative to body size of any vertebrate in Earth's history. Eyes that large are adapted for seeing in very low light, for hunting in the deep ocean, below the sunlit zone, in the twilight and the darkness where large prey could be found, but where vision required extreme sensitivity. What was Ophthalmosaurus hunting in the deep? Large cephalopods, probably the ancestors of modern squid and octopus, though very different in form. The Jurassic Ocean was rich in cephalopods, and hunting them in the dark, diving deep, using eyes larger than any vertebrate before or since. This was what Ophthalmosaurus was built for. It was a specialist of the deep, built for darkness and pressure, and it was extraordinary. But the ichthyosaurs were not alone. The plesiosaurs had diversified into two very different body plans, and both of them were terrifying in different ways. The long-necked plesiosaurs, the plesiosauroids, had bodies like barrels, 4 large flippers, and necks that in some species stretched to half the total body length. Cryptoclydus, Muranosaurus. These were the animals that gave rise to the Loch Ness Monster myth, though they were real, and the reality was more extraordinary than any myth. Their long necks have been a source of scientific debate for generations. How did they use them? The neck was too flexible and too long for high-speed pursuit. The most likely answer is that the neck was used to move the small head into positions where the body could not easily follow among the rocks, into schools of fish, under ledges, into crevices. The plesiosaur body hovered in open water, while the neck snaked into tight spaces, and the small, sharp-toothed jaws snapped up fish. The short-necked plesiosaurs, the pliosauroids, were something entirely different. Their necks were short, their heads were massive, their jaws were long and lined with conical teeth that interlocked when the mouth closed, forming a cage of bone from which nothing escaped. These were the macro-predators of the Jurassic Ocean, the animals at the very top of the marine food web, the ones that hunted other large marine reptiles. Liopleurodon. The name has entered popular culture as a kind of shorthand for Jurassic sea monster, and with good reason. Though popular depictions have exaggerated its size, the real Liopleurodon was impressive, but not the 25-meter fantasy of television. What the real animal was is impressive enough. 8 to 10 meters of pliosaur, with a skull perhaps 2 meters long, 4 powerful flippers generating a cross-shaped swimming stroke of extraordinary efficiency, and a bite force estimated to be among the largest of any animal that has ever lived. Liopleurodon did not chase prey. It did not need to. It ambushed. It waited in the dark. Using its extraordinary sense of smell, it could detect the electrical fields of other animals and the chemical signals in the water, and when something large came within range, it struck. The Jurassic Ocean was the first ocean in Earth's history where every layer of the water column from the sunlit surface to the midwater twilight zone was occupied by large, sophisticated, warm-blooded or near warm-blooded reptilian predators. Not just occupied, dominated. The sharks were present, the large fish were present, the invertebrates were abundant, but it was the reptiles that defined the Jurassic Ocean, the reptiles that drove the evolutionary arms race to new extremes, the reptiles that made the Jurassic Sea the most comprehensively, vertically dangerous ocean that had yet existed. Leedsichthys and the filter feeders of hell. Not every giant of the Jurassic Ocean was a predator. Leedsichthys problematicus was enormous. Its size has been revised and debated, but estimates range from 9 to perhaps 16 meters in length, placing it among the largest bony fish that have ever existed. It was not a predator in any conventional sense. It was a filter feeder, an enormous, slow-moving, open-mouthed giant that swam through the Jurassic Sea with its jaws agape, filtering millions of liters of water through the gill rakers, straining out the zooplankton and small fish that formed its diet. But Leedsichthys was not harmless. The sheer size of it, the scale of the body, the mass of the fin strikes, the pressure wave of a 16-meter fish moving at speed, was dangerous to smaller animals simply by its existence. And Leedsichthys was itself. Prey bite marks from Leopleurodon have been found on Leedsichthys bones, evidence of the pliosaurs taking enormous bites from the flanks of the filter feeder. The existence of Leedsichthys tells us something important about the Jurassic Ocean. It was productive enough to support a 16-meter filter feeder. The zooplankton and small fish that Leedsichthys ate were present in such astronomical quantities that a 16-meter animal could survive on them. This productivity, this richness, this incredible biological abundance was the foundation of everything above it. The enormous plesiosaurs and pliosaurs and ichthyosaurs were possible only because the ocean below them was full of food. The Jurassic Ocean was not just dangerous, it was rich, alive, teeming. The danger was not the emptiness of a dead sea, it was the abundance, the overflowing richness of a warm, productive ocean that had been building its food webs for 50 million years of post-Triassic recovery. Every layer was full, every niche was exploited, every size range had its occupant, and the largest sizes were occupied by the most extraordinary animals. The Cretaceous Ocean, the age of the Mosasaur, and then the Cretaceous arrived, and the ocean became something else entirely. The Cretaceous period, 145 to 66 million years ago, was the apex of the Mesozoic marine world. The sea levels were the highest they had been in hundreds of millions of years. Vast, shallow, inland seas covered large portions of every continent: the western interior seaway of North America, the chalk seas of Europe, the warm epicontinental seas of Africa and Asia. The climate was warm, the tropics warmer still. The ocean was at its most productive, rich in nutrients, rich in light, rich in the zooplankton and fish that fed everything above them. The ichthyosaurs, oddly, were declining. The group that had defined the marine world for 150 million years was slowly losing ground to newer groups for reasons that are not entirely clear. By the late Cretaceous, the ichthyosaurs were gone extinct before the mass extinction at the end of the period. The victims of ecological competition, or of environmental changes we cannot fully reconstruct. But the ocean did not mourn the ichthyosaurs. It was already filling their niche with something new, something that would become the most successful marine reptile family in Earth's history. Something that, within 25 million years of its first appearance, would come to dominate every ocean on Earth. The mosasaurs. The mosasaurs were not the descendants of the ichthyosaurs or the plesiosaurs. They were lizards, or rather, they were the relatives of lizards and snakes, the scaled reptiles, the lepidosaurs that returned to the sea in the mid-Cretaceous and, within the span of what is geologically a very short time, evolved from something not very different from a large monitor lizard into the supreme predators of the Cretaceous ocean. The basic mosasaur body plan was long, very long, and serpentine in its flexibility, where the ichthyosaurs had evolved to look like fish, rigid and streamlined and propelled by a powerful tail. The mosasaurs retained more of their lizard heritage. Their bodies undulated, driven by powerful trunk muscles as well as the tail. Their paddles, modified lizard limbs, were used for steering rather than propulsion. Their jaws were long and lined with teeth, and those teeth, depending on the species, could be conical and piercing for fish, globular and crushing for ammonoids, blade-like and serrated for large prey. Over the 25 million years of their reign, the mosasaurs diversified into dozens of genera and hundreds of species, exploiting every aquatic ecological niche available. Small mosasaurs hunted fish in shallow coastal waters. Medium mosasaurs pursued ammonoids in the open sea, and the large mosasaurs, the ones that make the modern imagination falter, hunted everything. Zifactinus, the fish that swallowed everything. Before we name the largest mosasaurs, let us meet the prey, because the prey of the Cretaceous ocean was itself extraordinary, itself monstrous, itself the product of 100 million years of aquatic arms race. Zifactinus audax. The name translates roughly as sword ray fish, a reference to the long, sword-like lower jaw that gave it a distinctive, aggressive silhouette. Zifactinus was a large predatory fish of the late Cretaceous, reaching lengths of up to 6 meters, comparable to a large great white shark. It was a bony fish, related to the modern tarpon, and like the tarpon it was a fast, aggressive, open water predator. The fossils of Zifactinus are striking for a particular reason. Several specimens have been found with the remains of large, partially digested fish preserved within the stomach cavity. The most famous of these is the fish within a fish fossil in the Sternberg Museum, a Zifactinus specimen containing the nearly complete skeleton of a 1.8 meter Gillicus inside it, swallowed whole, apparently still struggling when Zifactinus died. The struggle may have killed the predator, the prey's fins piercing the stomach wall from within. This is the Cretaceous ocean in microcosm. Predators so aggressive that they swallow prey that can kill them, prey so energetic that it kills the predator from inside. Zifactinus was not at the top of the Cretaceous food web. It was formidable, it was fast, it was large, but in the western interior seaway, it was prey. The mosasaurs ate it, the sharks ate it. Even the large plesiosaurs that persisted into the Cretaceous occasionally pursued it. Zifactinus was the mid-level predator of an ocean where the apex predators were of a different order of magnitude entirely. Tylosaurus, the longest nightmare of all the mosasaurs, Tylosaurus is perhaps the most comprehensively terrifying. Tylosaurus proriger reached lengths of 12 to 14 meters. Some estimates for the largest specimens pushed toward 15 meters. It was long, extraordinarily long, even by mosasaur standards, and it moved with the side-to-side undulation of a serpent, its body flexing in long, powerful waves from the neck to the tail. Its skull was massive, the snout elongated and reinforced at the tip with a solid, untoothed projection of bone, the rostrum that gave it its name. The function of this rostrum is debated. It may have been used to ram prey, to stun fish, or simply as a weapon in territorial disputes with other Tylosaurus individuals. But the rostrum was not what killed you. The teeth were what killed you. Tylosaurus had 2 rows of teeth on each jaw, the outer row for seizing, the inner row, the pterygoid teeth, positioned on the palate for gripping and processing prey that tried to escape. This double row meant that once something was in the jaws of Tylosaurus, there was no direction it could move that would not drive it deeper against a tooth. Modern snakes have this same arrangement, the evolutionary heritage of the squamate lineage that produced both snakes and mosasaurs. In Tylosaurus, scaled up to the size of a school bus, the effect was something that no prey animal in the Cretaceous ocean could escape. Tylosaurus was not a pursuit predator. It was an ambush predator, large, patient, capable of bursts of speed over short distances, but not built for sustained high-speed chases. It lay in wait, in the murky shallows of the western interior seaway, using the electroreception of its Jacobson's organ, the same chemical sensing organ that allows modern snakes and lizards to taste the air to detect the presence of prey in the water around it. When prey came within range, a Xiphactinus, perhaps, or a large sea turtle, or a plesiosaur considerably smaller than itself, Tylosaurus struck. Not with the explosive burst of a great white shark, more deliberately, more inevitably, the long body accelerating from stillness with the power of many meters of muscle, the jaws opening, the rostrum striking the prey body first, stunning, disorienting, and then the teeth closing. The stomachs of Tylosaurus specimens have been examined. One contained the remains of a diving bird, one of the early Cretaceous birds, and an antiornithine. One contained the remains of a large Hesperornithiform, a wing-reduced diving bird that hunted fish beneath the surface. One contained a shark. One contained another, smaller mosasaur. Tylosaurus ate everything in its ocean. It was the apex of the apex, the top of a food web that was itself extraordinary, and it occupied that position with an indifference that the word patience barely captures. Elasmosaurus and the neck from below. While Tylosaurus patrolled the middle depths and the shallows, something else moved through the waters of the Cretaceous ocean, something that seemed, when you saw it at first, like a deception of the water, a shape that did not resolve into anything familiar, that your eyes could not make sense of, that kept changing proportion as it moved. Elasmosaurus platyurus. The plesiosaurs had not gone extinct with the ichthyosaurs. The long-necked branch, the plesiosauroids, had continued into the Cretaceous and had produced their most extreme form. Elasmosaurus was not the largest plesiosaur, but it was the most extravagant in its proportions. A total length of perhaps 14 meters, of which more than half, 7 to 8 meters, was neck. The neck contained 72 individual vertebrae. The head at the end of this neck was small, almost delicate, set with small, needle-sharp teeth designed for catching fish. Imagine that neck from below. You are a fish in the shallow Cretaceous sea, near the surface, part of a school. The sun is above you, making patterns of light on the water. Below you is the gradient, the green fading to darker green, fading to the opaque darkness of the deeper water, 20 meters, 30 meters below. In that darkness, something large is hovering. You cannot see its body. It is too deep, too obscured by the water. What you see is the neck, rising from the darkness, 7 meters of slow-moving serpentine form, ascending toward you in the sunlit water, and at the end of the neck, the small head, angled upward, the needle teeth barely visible. By the time you register the neck, you are already within reach of the head. By the time you turn to flee, the turn has already passed through the head, and the teeth are already snapping shut. This is the feeding strategy of Elasmosaurus. Not a pursuit predator, not an ambush predator in the conventional sense, but something in between. The long neck allowed it to approach schooling fish from below, and at a distance, the body remaining deep and dark and unnoticed, while the neck and head entered the school from underneath, the fish having no reference point for an animal that could have its body 7 meters away from its head. It was the most unsettling hunting strategy in the Cretaceous ocean, possibly in any ocean. The attack came from the direction and the distance and the angle that made least evolutionary sense to the prey. Elasmosaurus fossils are found across the western interior seaway, the same sea as Tylosaurus, the same sea as Xiphactinus, the same shallow, warm, green-gray sea that covered the middle of North America 75 million years ago, that today is wheat fields and suburbs and the dry prairie of Kansas and Nebraska. Under that ground, under those wheat fields, the bones of Elasmosaurus still lie lying in the dark, as they have lain for 75 million years. The 72 vertebrae of the extraordinary neck curled in the rock, the needle teeth still perfect, waiting for the paleontologist who will one day bring them up into the sun. Cretoxorhina, the shark before the shark. The sharks were never absent. Through every ocean we have visited, the sharks were present, adapting, surviving, enduring. The late Cretaceous ocean had its own great shark, and it was, by the standards of modern sharks, extraordinary. Cretoxorhina mantelli, sometimes called the Ginsu shark, after the television knife commercials, because of its teeth blade-like, sharply serrated, designed for slicing rather than crushing. Cretoxorhina was a large shark by any standard. Estimates put the largest specimens at 6 to 7 meters in length, making it comparable in size to the modern great white shark, though probably somewhat more slender and faster. What sets Cretoxorhina apart is the evidence of its hunting behavior preserved in the fossil record. Several Tylosaurus specimens have been found with Cretoxorhina teeth embedded in their bones, evidence that this shark was attacking full-grown mosasaurs, not biting at the mosasaur from a safe distance. Attacking, pursuing, making a decision based on whatever evaluation a 7-meter shark makes, that a 12-meter mosasaur was worth going after, and sometimes succeeding. The bite marks on the Tylosaurus bones are evidence of feeding, not just attacking, evidence that the Cretoxorhina got close enough and hit hard enough to damage the bone of the largest predator in its ecosystem. The existence of Cretoxorhina attacking mosasaurs tells us something important about the dynamics of the Cretaceous ocean. This was not an ocean where the apex predators were unchallenged, where the largest animals ruled absolutely. It was an ocean of competition, where predators competed not just for prey but with each other, where the boundaries of the food web were contested and dangerous even at the very top. This was an ocean where the risk of violent death was present at every size and every position in the hierarchy. An ocean that was dangerous not just for the small things at the bottom of the food web, but for the largest, most powerful animals at its apex. The Cretaceous Night Ocean. The Cretaceous Ocean was not only dangerous in the daylight. Imagine the Western Interior Seaway at night. The sky above is dark. This is 75 million years ago, long before the light pollution that washes out the modern night sky. The Milky Way is visible from the water surface, a river of light reflected on the gently moving sea. The air is warmer than any modern summer night in Kansas, because the climate of the late Cretaceous was several degrees warmer than today, with no polar ice and a global temperature that made even the higher latitudes mild. The sea surface is calm, with a gentle swell. Below the surface, the darkness is absolute within a few meters. The water of the Western Interior Seaway was not clear, it was productive, rich with phytoplankton and particulate matter, which made it turbid, which made the darkness come quickly as you descended. At 10 meters, the darkness was nearly complete. In this darkness, things were hunting. Mosasaurs did not sleep the way mammals sleep. Their reptilian metabolism, even if elevated above the cold-blooded baseline by the warm water, did not require extended periods of unconsciousness. They rested periods of reduced activity, perhaps hovering in the middle depths, with their paddles slowly sculling, but they did not become insensible, did not stop processing the information of the water around them. In the night ocean, they continued to hunt, using senses that did not depend on light. The Jacobson's organ detected chemical gradients in the water, the faint dilutions of blood and metabolic products that trail behind every living animal in the sea. The lateral line detected pressure, changes the bow wave of a swimming fish, the pulse of a heartbeat in something hovering nearby. The Cretaceous mosasaur moved through the night ocean on these senses, guided by chemical trails and pressure signatures, finding prey in the dark with the accuracy of a system honed over millions of years. The plesiosaurs hunted differently at night. Their large eyes, in some species, may have been adapted for low-light vision. The retinas of large eyes contain more photoreceptors, allowing them to see in conditions that would be too dark for smaller-eyed animals. An elasmosaurus in the night ocean, its 7-meter neck rising from the darkness toward the surface, its large eyes scanning the barely lit water column above for the silhouettes of sleeping fish. This is one of the most alien hunting scenes the planet has produced. The sharks hunted with their ampullae of Lorenzini, the electroreceptive organs clustered around the snout that detect the bioelectric fields produced by every muscle contraction in every living animal. In the complete darkness of the night ocean, a shark did not need to see its prey. It felt the electricity of its heartbeat. The Cretaceous night ocean was not less dangerous than the day ocean. It was differently dangerous, an ocean where the darkness provided no shelter, no safety, no advantage to the prey that could not navigate in it as well as its predators. An ocean that was always hunting, always moving, always consuming. After the impact, the sea resets. 66.038 million years ago, a 10-kilometer asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula at 20 kilometers per second. The impact released energy equivalent to 1 billion nuclear weapons. The sky above the impact site turned to plasma. The ejecta rained across the globe. The sulfur from the vaporized limestone entered the stratosphere and blocked the sun for months. The Cretaceous ocean ended. Not immediately. The mosasaurs did not die in the first minutes, though the tsunamis that swept outward from the impact site would have disrupted coastal populations catastrophically. They died over months and years as the food web beneath them collapsed. The phytoplankton dependent on sunlight died in the darkness of the impact winter. The zooplankton that fed on the phytoplankton starved. The fish that fed on the zooplankton starved. And the mosasaurs and the plesiosaurs and the sharks at the top of the food web, huge animals with enormous caloric requirements, starved fastest of all. The western interior seaway drained as the sea level dropped with the global cooling of the impact winter and never refilled. The shallow, warm, green-gray sea that had been one of the most productive and most dangerous marine environments in Earth's history became dry land. The grasslands and the wheat fields and the suburbs where the bones of Elasmosaurus and Tylosaurus lie in the dark. The ocean itself survived. The deep basins, the Atlantic, the Pacific, the nascent Indian Ocean, were not destroyed, but they were impoverished. The extinction of the mosasaurs, the plesiosaurs, the ammonoids, the belemnites, and enormous numbers of fish and invertebrate species left the ocean's food web simplified and reduced. The ocean of the early Paleocene, the first few million years after the impact, was a survivor's ocean, sparse, quiet, dominated by small, generalist organisms. But in that surviving ocean, something new was beginning. The Eocene, new terrors rising. The Paleocene and Eocene epochs, from 66 to 34 million years ago, saw the ocean rebuilding. The fish diversified rapidly into the empty ecological space. The mollusks recovered. The foraminifera bloomed. The world's oceans, deprived of the reptilian apex predators that had defined the Mesozoic marine world for 200 million years, were filling their vacated roles with new occupants. The sharks, as always, had survived. The sharks survive everything. The lamniforms, the order that includes the great white, the mako, the thresher, had been present in the Cretaceous and had made it through the extinction event. Their small body sizes and their flexible feeding ecology, allowing them to persist through the food web collapse that killed the giants. Now, in the recovering ocean, they were evolving rapidly. The early Paleogene sharks were not yet the giants of the later Miocene, but they were diversifying, producing new species, new body sizes, new ecological specializations, and they were getting larger with each passing million years as the recovering ocean could support increasingly large predators. Into this recovering ocean, at the end of the Eocene, waded something that was not a shark at all, something that had been 50 million years earlier, a land animal, something that was still in its physiology and in its bone structure and in the milk it gave its young, a mammal. The whales were coming. Basilosaurus, the ancient whale that was not gentle. Basilosaurus, king lizard, a misnomer given when it was first described, when its fossils were mistakenly thought to belong to a giant marine reptile. By the time the mistake was corrected, when it became clear that this animal's bones had the structure of a mammal, not a reptile, the name had stuck. Basilosaurus was a whale, not the gentle, sonorous, filter-feeding whale of the modern ocean, not even the toothed whales, the dolphins and sperm whales of the modern ocean, which are themselves formidable predators. Basilosaurus was something from before all of that, An Eocene whale, 40 to 34 million years ago, a creature whose ancestors had walked on land on four legs less than 20 million years earlier, and which had, in that span, transformed into something almost unrecognizable. The body of Basilosaurus was serpentine, elongated far beyond what we associate with modern whales, reaching perhaps 18 meters in length, with a cylindrical body that undulated through the water in horizontal waves like a sea serpent. The rear limbs were vestigial, small, useless for swimming, but preserved in the fossil as evidence of the terrestrial ancestry. Tiny legs on an 18-meter body, a reminder of where this thing had come from. The flippers were modified forelimbs, the fluked tail newly evolved, not inherited from any previous aquatic ancestor, but invented from scratch in the mammalian lineage. The skull of Basilosaurus was massive and heavily toothed, not the smooth, conical teeth of a dolphin, not the filter plates of a baleen whale, but multiple tooth types, large, blade-like rear teeth for slicing, smaller front teeth for seizing, a dentition designed for processing large prey, for biting into something and tearing away a piece. Analysis of bite marks on other Eocene whale fossils on Dorudon, the smaller whale that shared its ocean, suggests that Basilosaurus regularly hunted and ate other whales. Basilosaurus was not just a marine predator, it was a whale eater, one of the first of the great marine mammalian predators, and it was not gentle about its business. The Eocene ocean with Basilosaurus was not the deadliest ocean in Earth's history. It was still rebuilding from the Cretaceous extinction, still not at the ecological complexity it would reach in the Miocene. But Basilosaurus was a sign of what was coming, a portent. The mammals had entered the ocean, and they were not going to be content with small prey. The Miocene, the ocean at its most dangerous. The Miocene epoch, 23 million years ago to 5 million years ago. The world is becoming recognizable. The continents are in something close to their modern positions. The ocean basins are largely as they are today. The climate is warmer than the Pleistocene, but cooler than the Eocene greenhouse. The grasslands are spreading across the continents, driving the evolution of the fast, large-brained, socially complex grazing mammals that will eventually share their world with our ancestors. And in the ocean, the apex predators are reaching a size and a ferocity that the ocean has never before achieved. Not even in the Cretaceous, not even in the days of Tylosaurus and Liopleurodon. The Miocene ocean, specifically the warm, shallow, productive Miocene ocean of the subtropical and tropical latitudes, is the most dangerous ocean in Earth's history. Two animals define this claim. Two animals that lived at the same time, in the same water, that represent the absolute pinnacle of what the ocean's evolutionary engine can produce when given enough time and enough warm, productive sea. Megalodon and Leviathan. Megalodon, the architecture of terror. Otodus megalodon, from the Greek, great tooth, a simple name for an animal that does not require elaboration in its naming. The tooth says everything. Megalodon was a shark. Specifically, it was a lamniform shark related to the great white, the mako, the salmon shark. But it was not a great white scaled up. The proportions were different, the body likely more robust and stocky than the sleek torpedo of a great white. It was a macro-predatory specialist, an animal that had been evolving in the direction of large prey for tens of millions of years through its ancestor lineage, and which had, in the Miocene, reached what may be the maximum sustainable size for a predatory shark in Earth's oceans. How large? The honest answer is, we are not entirely sure, because shark skeletons are made of cartilage that does not fossilize well, and all we have are the teeth. But the teeth are extraordinary. The largest exceed 17 centimeters from root to tip, and estimates of body length based on the scaling relationship between tooth size and body length in related species produce figures that range from 15 to 20 meters, with the most recent, most careful estimates settling around 15 to 16 meters for the largest individuals. 15 meters, the length of a large semi-truck. The weight, estimated from various scaling methods, somewhere between 30 and 65 metric tons, moving through the water with the power of a body that is almost pure muscle, the tail driving it forward at speeds estimated at 5 to 11 kilometers per hour in cruising mode, and much faster in short bursts. The teeth of Megalodon were serrated like steak knives, but each one the size of a human hand. The full dentition would have included approximately 276 teeth in 5 rows. The front rows functional, the rear rows replacement teeth, waiting their turn. The bite force has been estimated at between 108,000 and 182,000 newtons, the strongest bite force of any animal ever reconstructed, more than 10 times the bite force of a modern great white shark, more than 30 times the bite force of an adult saltwater crocodile. A single bite from Megalodon could sever a whale's tail fluke. A single bite could crush the ribcage of a large baleen whale, collapsing the lungs, ending the fight in one strike. Megalodon's prey was whales, specifically the medium to large baleen whales that were diversifying in the Miocene Ocean, the rorquals, the balanopterids, the early right whales. These animals, ranging from 5 to 15 meters in length, were the caloric foundation of Megalodon's existence. A large whale represents hundreds of thousands of calories a meal that could sustain a Megalodon for weeks. The hunting strategy was probably similar to modern great white attacks on marine mammals. Approach from below, accelerating from the deep, where the dark body is invisible against the dark water. Strike the prey's vulnerable areas, the flukes, the belly, the thorax, with a disabling bite, then withdraw and wait for the prey to die before feeding at leisure. Megalodon bite marks are found on whale fossils from around the world. Many show characteristic patterns: the first bite aimed at the tail, severing the flukes to prevent escape, the subsequent bites targeting the thorax and the belly. The pattern reveals intelligence, or at least the refined instinct that in a sufficiently complex predator is indistinguishable from intelligence. Megalodon did not simply attack randomly. It attacked systematically, with a consistency of approach that suggests learned behavior or possibly cultural transmission. If Megalodon had the kind of social structure that allowed behavioral learning between individuals, the fossils of Megalodon teeth are found in marine sediments on every continent except Antarctica. This is a global predator, an animal that occupied the warm and temperate oceans of the entire world, from the tropical Atlantic to the tropical Pacific, to the warm coastal seas of Europe and Africa and Asia. For approximately 20 million years, Megalodon was present in virtually every productive ocean on Earth. For 20 million years, no whale was safe. Livyatan melvillei, the tooth that haunts the deep. But Megalodon was not the only apex predator of the Miocene Ocean, and in the warm, rich waters of the subtropical Pacific, it had a competitor, an equal, possibly a superior, that was not a shark at all. The skull was found in the Pisco Formation of Peru in 2008. It was enormous, 3 meters long, the largest skull ever found of a toothed whale. The teeth preserved in perfect detail in the dry desert rock were each more than 30 centimeters long. Some of the functional teeth were 36 centimeters from root to tip, making them the largest teeth of any animal in Earth's history, including Megalodon. And unlike the Megalodon tooth, which is a blade designed for slicing, for cutting, the teeth of this animal were conical, piercing, designed for gripping, for holding, for not letting go. The animal was named Livyatan melvillei. Livyatan, the Leviathan of the Old Testament, the monster of the deep. Melvillei for Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick, who understood something about the terror of what the ocean contains. Livyatan was a sperm whale, or rather, a member of the lineage that produced the modern sperm whale. But it was not a modern sperm whale. The modern sperm whale feeds primarily on squid in the deep ocean, using echolocation to hunt in darkness. Livyatan was something different, a macro-predatory sperm whale with large, functional teeth in both upper and lower jaws. The modern sperm whale has teeth only in the lower jaw and a skull and jaw architecture designed for powerful biting on large, struggling prey. The body length is estimated at 13 to 17 meters, comparable to Megalodon in total length, though the body mass of a whale at that length is substantially greater than the body mass of a shark, because the internal architecture of a mammal is denser and the metabolic requirements higher. Livyatan was warm-blooded. It breathed air. It may have been social. Modern sperm whales are deeply social animals, living in matrilineal groups, and Livyatan may have shared some of this social structure. If it was social, it may have hunted cooperatively, coordinating attacks on large prey in ways that a solitary predator cannot. Livyatan's prey was also whales. The medium-sized baleen whales that Megalodon hunted, the rorquals. The Balaenopterids were also within the prey range of Livyatan. Both apex predators were competing for the same food source. Both were present in the same ocean when Megalodon and Livyatan shared the same water. This is the moment. This is the Miocene subtropical Pacific, approximately 12 million years ago. The moment that represents the absolute apex of the ocean's deadliness. The point at which the evolutionary arms race, running for 375 million years, had produced its most extreme and most consequential products. The water is warm, warmer than the modern Pacific at the same latitudes. The Miocene climate was several degrees warmer than today. The seas rich and productive. The coastal zones of what is now Peru and Chile are, in the Miocene, shallow, warm, upwelling rich seas, the same upwelling that makes the modern Humboldt Current so productive, but warmer and more extensive. Fish are abundant. Marine mammals are abundant. The baleen whales, the great filter feeders, move through the productive surface waters in groups, their calls echoing in the water, their presence detected by every sensitive system in every predator's head. Megalodon is present. Perhaps a large females in lamniform sharks tend to be larger than males, 16 meters, 50 metric tons, moving in slow circles at the edge of a group of rorquals. She has been tracking this group for hours, using the electrical signatures of their muscle activity, using the chemical traces of their passage through the water, using a sensory system refined over 400 million years of shark evolution. She is patient. She has no concept of patience, but the behavior that results from her sensory capacities and her hunting instincts looks, to any observer, like patience. In the same water, perhaps a kilometer away, Leviathan is present, a mature male, larger than the females in his lineage, moving with the porpoising action of a large toothed whale, surfacing to breathe with a slow exhalation of warm air, descending again into the green dark water. He has been following the same whale group. His echolocation, the sonar of the sperm whale lineage, gives him a three-dimensional acoustic image of the water around him that no shark's senses can match. He knows exactly where the rorquals are. He knows their size and their speed and the depth at which they are swimming. He knows there is also something large at the edge of the group, something with a different acoustic signature, cartilaginous rather than bony, a different density, a different shape, a shark, a very large shark. In the modern ocean, sperm whales and great white sharks do not interact much. They occupy different ecological niches, the sperm whales hunting in the deep for squid, the great whites targeting marine mammals near the surface. But in the Miocene, both Leviathan and Megalodon were surface and mid-water macropredators, competing for the same prey. They would have encountered each other regularly. They would have competed directly over carcasses, indirectly over the prey populations that sustained them both. Who won these encounters? We cannot know from the fossil record. No megalodon tooth embedded in Leviathan bone has been found. No Leviatangent bite mark on a megalodon tooth. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence in paleontology, and the question must remain open. But the physics and the biology suggest that the outcome would depend heavily on context. Megalodon was faster and could strike from below, from the blind spot, with a disabling bite of extraordinary force. Leviathan had the thermal and metabolic advantages of warm-bloodedness, the acoustic advantage of echolocation, and potentially the social advantage of group cooperation. In open water, Megalodon might strike first. In shallow water, where Leviathan's echolocation was more effective and its maneuverability greater, Leviathan might have the advantage. What is certain is that this ocean, the Miocene subtropical ocean, where both of these animals lived, was the most dangerous body of water that has ever existed on Earth. The apex predators were the largest, the most powerful, the most sophisticated that evolution had ever produced. Below them, the food web was rich enough to sustain them both. The competition between them and the other large predators of the Miocene, the great white shark's ancestors, the early killer whale relatives, drove the continued refinement of their hunting capabilities, their sensory systems, their physical power. The Miocene Ocean was not a place where anything large could feel safe. The whales, the prey, were themselves enormous and powerful and intelligent, but they died. They were killed and eaten by the thousands. The fossil record of the Pisco Formation is a record of killing whale bones with tooth marks, whale bones with bite patterns that match the dentition of Megalodon, whale bones cracked and scattered by the feeding of large predators. The desert of coastal Peru, where the Pisco fossils lie, is a graveyard of the Miocene Ocean's violence, preserved in dry rock, waiting to be found. The last hunt, the Miocene, ended. The ocean cooled as the climate shifted toward the Pleistocene glaciations. The productivity of the warm subtropical seas that had supported Megalodon and Leviathan declined as the water cooled and the upwelling patterns changed. The large baleen whales, the prey of both apex predators, began to shift their distribution, following the productive waters toward the higher latitudes where the cooler ocean drove more upwelling. The warm water specialists, the prey that Megalodon had evolved to hunt in warm subtropical seas, became less available in the subtropical zones where Megalodon had always concentrated. Leviathan went first, or at least the evidence suggests it. The macropredatory sperm whale lineage Leviathan and its relatives disappeared from the fossil record by the end of the Miocene, approximately 5 million years ago. The modern sperm whale is a specialist of the deep, a squid hunter, not the macropredatory giant of the Miocene. What happened to the lineage? Competition, possibly the rise of the killer whale, Orcinus orca, which is itself a formidable macropredator with the additional advantages of extreme social intelligence and cooperative hunting. Ecological shift. Certainly the changing ocean of the late Miocene and Pliocene made a different world, one in which the massive, warm water, macropredatory sperm whale was no longer the best adapted option. Megalodon lasted longer. The fossil record of Megalodon extends to approximately 3.6 million years ago, making it one of the most long-lived of the great marine predators. But by the end of the Pliocene, it too was gone. The causes of Megalodon's extinction are debated. The cooling of the ocean, making the warm water nursery areas where Megalodon gave birth unavailable. The shift in whale migration patterns, with the large baleen whales moving to high latitudes where the cold water was uncomfortable for Megalodon. The rise of the killer whale as a competitor, possibly the indirect effect of the spread of the first hominids who were hunting the coastal marine mammals that formed part of the mid-level food web supporting the system. The last Megalodon was somewhere in some warm ocean, probably smaller than its ancestors, hunting a declining prey base, the last of its kind without knowing it. It died alone, without witnesses. Its teeth sank to the ocean floor and were eventually covered in sediment, preserved in the darkness, slowly mineralizing over 3.6 million years into the black and gray and white fossils that wash up on beaches. Today, the teeth of the largest predatory shark that ever lived, lying on the sand, waiting to be picked up by the hand of a creature whose entire species did not exist when the last Megalodon drew its final breath. Why these oceans ended. Every era of the ocean's deadliness ended eventually. The Devonian Sea that Dunkleosteus ruled was ended by the late Devonian extinction. The environmental crises that collapsed the reef ecosystems and emptied the shallow seas. The Jurassic Ocean of Liopleurodon was ended by the transition to the Cretaceous, not dramatically, but through the slow turnover of ecological dominance as new forms arose and old ones faded. The Cretaceous Ocean of Tylosaurus and Elasmosaurus was ended by the asteroid catastrophically, comprehensively, irreversibly. The Miocene Ocean of Megalodon and Leviathan was ended by climate change, by the slow cooling and the ecological shifts that took the prey out of the warm subtropical seas and left the great predators without a food base. The pattern is clear. The deadliest oceans are the ones at the peak of their productive cycles, in their warmest periods, with the most complex and richest food webs. They end when something disrupts the food web: extinction events, climate shifts, the movement of prey populations to different latitudes. The apex predators, perfectly adapted to their specific productive ocean, cannot adapt quickly enough to the new conditions. They disappear, and the ocean begins again, building slowly toward the next peak of complexity and danger. The modern ocean is not at its peak of danger. We are in the Holocene, in the aftermath of the Pleistocene cooling and the extinction of many large marine megafauna. We are in an ocean that is warmer than the Pleistocene but not as warm as the Miocene, that is productive but recovering from millions of years of glacially cold disruption. The apex predators of the modern ocean, the great white shark, the killer whale, the sperm whale, are formidable but diminished compared to their Miocene predecessors. The great white shark reaches perhaps 6 meters. The sperm whale is a deep ocean squid specialist. The killer whale is extraordinary in its intelligence and its hunting techniques, but 8 meters is not 16. The most dangerous ocean in Earth's history is the past. It exists now only in rock, in the teeth and the bones and the trace fossils of the Pisco Formation and the Kansas Chalk and the Cleveland Shale and a dozen other fossil-bearing rock units around the world. It exists in the black and gray serrated teeth that wash up on beaches, in the plesiosaur bones in museum storage rooms, in the armored plates of Dunkleosteus in natural history collections. It exists tonight in the telling of it in the slow descent through the ancient water, through the warm and dangerous seas, through 400 million years of the ocean at its most extreme. What the ocean still holds. But the modern ocean is not tame. It is not safe. It is not finished with producing extraordinary things. The great white shark, the apex predator of the modern coastal ocean, is descended from the same lamniform lineage as Megalodon. Not from Megalodon directly, the two species diverged tens of millions of years ago, but from the same ancient sharks that were present in the Cretaceous, the sharks that survived the asteroid impact, the sharks that watched the mosasaurs and the plesiosaurs die and remained, as they always remain. The great white is the inheritor of 400 million years of shark evolution, a predator refined by every one of those years, and in the modern ocean it is formidable. The killer whale, Orcinus orca, may be the most cognitively sophisticated predator that has ever existed in any ocean. Its brain is 4 times the size of a human brain. Its social structure is organized around matrilineal pods, with cultural traditions, specific hunting techniques passed from mother to offspring over generations, so that different populations have entirely different prey specializations and hunting strategies. The killer whale that hunts great white sharks in the waters off South Africa, systematically, surgically, flipping the shark upside down to induce tonic immobility and then removing its liver with a precision that suggests detailed anatomical knowledge, is not operating on instinct alone. It is applying learned cultural knowledge to a specific prey. The colossal squid Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni reaches perhaps 14 meters in total length. It lives in the deep Southern Ocean at depths of 2,000 meters, in water just above freezing. It is the largest invertebrate predator that currently exists on Earth. It has the largest eyes of any living animal eyes, 27 centimeters in diameter, built for seeing in the deep ocean darkness. Its tentacles are equipped with rotating hooks, not suckers, but hooks, rotating hooks that tear into whatever they grip. It hunts the deep ocean fish and squid that share its darkness, and it is itself hunted by the sperm whale, which bears sucker scar patterns on its skin from battles with colossal squid in the abyss. The deep ocean, the 95% of the ocean that is deeper than 200 meters, the part that no sunlight reaches, the part that is almost entirely unexplored, undoubtedly contains things we have not yet found. The ocean covers 71% of the Earth's surface and has an average depth of 3,688 meters. We have explored a fraction of it. The species we have found in the deep ocean continue to surprise the barrel-eye fish with its transparent head. The siphonophore, that forms a colony 45 meters long, the Dumbo octopus that lives at 7,000 meters, the giant isopod the size of a dinner plate. Each expedition to the deep ocean returns with new species, some of them deeply strange, some of them large. What is down there, in the truly deep parts of the ocean, in the darkness and the cold and the pressure of the abyss, that we have not yet described? We cannot say. The ocean is still largely unknown. The most dangerous ocean in Earth's history is in the past, but the ocean of today still holds its mysteries, still holds its extraordinary things, still produces in its deep and dark and pressured places forms of life that would astonish us if we could bring them to the surface. A walk through the deadliest ocean. Let us go there one more time, not to the modern ocean. We know the modern ocean, with its familiar dangers and its familiar beauty. Let us go back to the Cretaceous, to the Western Interior Seaway, 75 million years ago, on a warm afternoon, when the sky above the sea is heavy with humidity and the water stretches from horizon to horizon in every direction, green and gray and warm, full. You are at the surface. The sun is hot on your face. The water around you is warm, warmer than any modern ocean except in the most tropical places. Below you, the water is clear for a few meters and then turns green and opaque. You can see perhaps 5 meters down on a good day. Beyond that, nothing, just the green fading to darkness. You are treading water. You are, by the standards of this ocean, very small, a few meters of soft mammalian body in a sea that contains Tylosaurus and Elasmosaurus and Cretoxorhina and Zephactinus, a sea where every layer of the water below you is occupied by something that is better designed for this environment than you are, a sea where your presence, your heartbeat, your electrical field, the chemicals you are leaving in the water with every breath you exhale, is being registered by sensory systems far more acute than your own. You are, in this ocean, prey. Not interesting prey, too small to be worth the attention of the largest predators, but prey nonetheless. Something in this water would eat you. Something is already aware of you. Something is calculating, with whatever passes for calculation in the predator's nervous system, whether you are worth the energy expenditure of an approach. The surface is deceptively calm, a slight swell, the sound of water, the distant call of something in the air above one of the pterosaurs, perhaps a small one, riding the thermals above the seaway and watching the surface for the flash of fish. You are warm. The sun is still above the horizon. Everything seems, in this moment, almost peaceful. And then, the pressure wave. You don't see it coming. You feel it. A change in the water pressure against your legs. A slow, massive displacement that travels ahead of something very large, moving upward from below. Not fast. Not yet. Just the bow wave of a body the size of a school bus, rising from the darkness below you, its sensory systems having registered your presence some time ago, its decision to approach having been made in whatever way. Decisions are made in the nervous system of a 12-meter mosasaur. The water darkens below you, a shape not resolving into anything specific. Not yet, just a change in the quality of the green-gray dark, larger than you expected, much larger, and rising still. This is the deadliest ocean in Earth's history. This is what it felt like, from the inside, to be small in ancient water. The ocean below you now. You are lying in the dark. The room is still. The world outside is doing whatever the world does while you sleep. The the slow rotation of the earth, the movement of the clouds, the sound of whatever weather is passing through. But beneath you, always beneath you, the ocean is there. The dark, deep, ancient ocean, full of its modern creatures, descended from the monsters we have named tonight. The great white shark, carrying in its genome the legacy of 400 million years of lamniform evolution. The sperm whale, diving to 2,000 meters in the darkness, hunting squid with echolocation, bearing the scars of battles in the abyss. The colossal squid, moving through freezing water with its rotating hooks and its enormous eyes. The largest invertebrate predator of the current world. The ocean has always been dangerous. It was dangerous before there were eyes to see the danger. Dangerous before there was a concept of danger. Dangerous for 4 billion years of evolution. Every predator we named tonight was the product of that danger, shaped by it, expressing it, carrying it forward in their bodies and their behaviors. And every predator we named was eventually replaced by something, or ended by something, or ended by nothing except the slow turning of geological time. The ocean continues. It is warmer now than it was a century ago, warming faster than at any point since the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, warming in ways that are changing where the productive waters are, where the whales go, where the fish schools form, where the great predators hunt. The ocean is changing. It will continue to change. In 10 million years, if the warming continues and the productive zones shift, and the food web reorganizes, the ocean may produce new apex predators that we cannot yet imagine, the products of the evolutionary potential that still exists in every lineage that is alive today. The deadliest ocean in Earth's history was in the past. The deadliest ocean of the future may be something we have not conceived of yet. But tonight, the ocean is beneath you, dark and cold and ancient and alive. Its predators are hunting in the darkness. Its food webs are cycling in the deep. Its creatures, some of them extraordinary, are doing what they have always done, what they were shaped by 400 million years of evolution to do. Tonight, you are safe from it. You are warm. You are dry. You are on land, which is not the ocean's territory, which is where the mammals retreated after the ocean pushed them off the shore and onto the rocks and eventually up the trees. You are the descendant of survivors of mammals, small enough and fast enough and nocturnal enough to avoid the attention of the predators that ruled every world before ours. You survived everything that came before tonight. So did every ancestor you have, all the way back to the first cells in the first warm water. The ocean tried its best. The Dunkleosteus and the Tylosaurus and the Megalodon and the Leviathan all had their chance across 400 million years, and you are still here. Let the water be dark. Let the predators hunt in it as they have always hunted. You are on land. You are warm. You are safe. Epilogue. The water below you. Now, the Devonian Sea is 375 million years beneath you, pressed into rock. The bones of Dunkleosteus compressed into the Cleveland Shale that lies under the city of Cleveland, Ohio. The Jurassic Sea is 150 million years beneath you. The calcium of Liopleurodon's enormous teeth dissolved and redeposited in the limestone of England and France and Germany. Every white cliff along the English Channel, built partly from the bodies of things that died in the Jurassic Sea. The Cretaceous Sea is 75 million years beneath you. The bones of Tylosaurus lying in the Great Plains, the mosasaur teeth scattered in the river gravels of Alabama and Morocco and New Zealand. The Miocene Sea is 12 million years beneath you. The megalodon teeth lying in the sediment of every tropical and subtropical ocean on Earth, black and perfect and enormous. The 36-centimeter teeth of Leviathan lying in the desert rock of Peru, all of it beneath you, all of it dark, all of it ancient, all of it true. The ocean is the oldest thing. It formed 4 billion years ago from the rain that fell on the cooling rock of the young Earth, from the comets that delivered their icy cargo to the surface. It has been there continuously, through every catastrophe and every recovery, through every mass extinction and every radiation, through every period of warmth and every ice age. The ocean has been there longer than anything alive has been alive. It will be there after the last living thing on Earth has ceased to exist. It is patient, the ocean. Patient the way that deep time is patient, not because it waits for anything, but because it exists in a time scale where waiting and not waiting are the same thing. The ocean does not wait for the next megalodon. It simply continues. And when the conditions are right, the megalodon appears. And when the conditions change, the megalodon disappears, and the ocean continues regardless. The water below you tonight is the same water that Dunkley Osteus swam in, recycled, evaporated and rained, run through rivers and evaporated again, cycled through the ocean 1,000 times. But the same water molecules, the same hydrogen and oxygen atoms, the same ancient stuff. The water in the glass by your bed, if there is a glass by your bed, was in the Cretaceous Sea, was in the Miocene Ocean where Megalodon hunted, was in the Hadean Earth's first rain, falling on rock that had not yet cooled. The water is ancient, and the ocean is ancient, and the life in the ocean is ancient, and the danger in the ocean is ancient. Older than anything on the land, older than anything with lungs, older than anything with legs. And tonight, you sleep above it all, warm and dry and safe, in the thin shell of air, and rock above the deep and ancient and still dangerous water. Sleep well. The ocean will be there when you wake. Good night.